Hi, I'm Madison and welcome back to my channel. Today I have 5 new adult romance recommendations for you. So I've read a bunch of new adult romances over the years, and I've made a couple of romance recommendations that are college specific romances or college sport romances, but never just one that's new adult romances overall. Now, new adult romances, the way that I categorize them, are characters that are kind of aged between the ages of 17 to like 24. So normally they're spicy romances that are set either in high school or in college is kind of the way that I've always viewed them. The first of which I have to recommend is going to be Midnight Kisses by Jeannine Bennedict. This is a new adult college sport romance. It is a friends with benefits romance as well. This is a romance between Greta and Otis. Now, Greta is the football coach's daughter and Otis is the quarterback for the football team. Now, Otis has just come back to the football team because he tore his ACL the year prior and he was obviously in rehab for that, and now he's finally back on the team and he really wants to get back to where he was as like the golden child, but the problem is that the coach is not really giving him a chance to kind of get his old spot back, and he's really frustrated about that. Then you have Greta, and Greta is just living her college life. She is sleeping with anyone she feels like sleeping with, racking up her body count, going to parties, going to her classes. She's just living life, and I love her for that. And so one night she goes to a party and she meets Otis. The two of them have a one-night stand. They don't exchange names. They spend the whole night together. They have crazy amazing sex. I mean, it starts off with a 16-page sex scene, FYI. And they part ways. Well, Greta basically kicks him out because she's like, it's a one-night stand. You're trying to make me breakfast. Get out of my house. And he's a little bit offended by that, but it's like, whatever. Then what ends up happening is that Greta is over at her dad's place for dinner one night and Otis comes over and they end up realizing who the other person is. And they're like, oh, now we really can't start anything. Except the only problem is that they have such great chemistry in the bedroom that they end up deciding to embark on a friends with benefits relationship, and it is their romance over the course of this book. It's such an amazing new adult romance. It is one of my favorites that I've ever read just because it's so raw and real, and while the spicy spice is absolutely delicious in this, like, it is very casual kink play, which I'm very appreciative of. They really embrace kink in this book, but on a very chill level, so it's not kind of made to be like, oh, look at all these kinks, oh my god. It's like, hey, this is just this person's everyday life where they like to explore these kind of things, which I really liked. But it was absolutely amazing. Highly recommend it. And yeah. We then have Find Me by Ashley Rosteck. This is a Why Choose romance. Now, this follows Shiloh, and a year ago her family was murdered by her stalker. Shiloh is the only one who survived the complete massacre, and she ended up entering into the WITSEC program with her uncle. Flash forward a year, she is now moving to Arizona so that she can redo her senior year of high school because she is now she's 18 turning 19, and so she missed out on actually completing high school because she was in WITSEC, and so she's now going back to complete it. And when she moves into her house in Arizona, she ends up moving next door to these 4 hot guys. And 2 of those guys are twins who are in her senior year of high school with her, and the other 2 are older and they currently run the town's gym. And it is her romance with them. It is very much her healing process because the guy who murdered her entire family is actually still on the run and is still being hunted by like the FBI. And so she is still very much afraid of that. She has a lot of PTSD, a lot of trauma. Her body is actually covered in scars because of everything that she went through during the massacre. And so she still has nightmares about it, and it's her romance with the guys as they kind of let her in. It starts off, this is a 4-book series. The first book focuses on her relationship with the twins and then a little bit on the 2 older brothers, and then the relationship keeps going from there. The first book isn't that spicy, so it is definitely like more of like a slow burn build on the spice level throughout the series. Also, Shiloh is such a total badass. Like, she went through like all this martial arts training, and one of the guys ends up sneaking up on her to be like, boo, surprise, and she flips him over, and it is absolutely hilarious. This is so much fun, and this book also got me out of a reading slump, so do check it out. Now I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite books that I've actually read in 2023 already. This is definitely going to be on my top 10 of 2023, and I have to mention it here, and that is going to be Broken Bonds by Bree. This is the first book in the Bonds That Tie series. This is kind of a mixture between urban fantasy, dystopian, and omegaverse, if I like had to explain it, to be quite honest, which is kind of difficult. Now, the first book in this I consider new adult because our main character, Ollie, she is 19 years old and she's just entering university, so it is new adult in that sense, but it doesn't feel like it's new adult because only the first book takes place in university, and then it more so focuses on like saving the world. But this series, oh my god, it's so hard to explain. Oh, I hate when I do this. I love this series so much, but it is the biggest pain in the ass to explain. Okay, this is set in a world where you have got the gifted and the ungifted. Now, the ungifted obviously have no magical powers, and the gifted do have magical powers. There are also people called bonds, and this is where it kind of is very much like Omegaverse. So you've got people who are known as central bonds and the people who are known as bonds, and you can find out who those are through blood work. So you're kind of like fated to be with these people. So there is a central bond, and that person can have as many bonds as like their blood work shows. So you can be a central bond with like 2 bonds, or a central bond with like 3 bonds or 4 bonds. And what happens is like these are the people that you're fated to be with, and the central bond, whenever they become bonded with their bond, it ends up enhancing their powers. So it makes you more powerful. So each bond group can become super powerful once they are fully bonded, and the way to become fully bonded is by having sex with your bond. So when a central bond has sex with her bond, they become bonded. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, so you're following Ollie, and she is a central bond who has basically rejected all of her bonds and has actually been on the run for 5 years because she's actually being hunted by the resistance. And when the series starts off, she has finally been captured by her bonds. One of her bonds is like this super powerful councilman, and he finally captures her, and he basically, you know, puts a tracking device in her, and he is like, you now have to be part of our bond group, like we can't have you on the run, it is a disgrace, because her entire bond group is actually like a bunch of high-ranking people. And so she ends up being forced to attend Draven University, which is a university for the gifted. And so that is what this series is about. It's about Ollie and her bonds, her forming a relationship with her bonds, but also the resistance trying to track her down and kill everyone and try and take over the world, and also a bit of a war between the gifted and the ungifted. That sounded a bit convoluted, but it is hard. I find it's just a hard series to explain without taking the time to explain it. It is one of my favorite things that I have ever read in my entire life. I have an entire vlog that just recently came out where I read this. I actually read it while on vacation in Mexico. So it is not only an amazing vlog reading amazing books, but it's also a very fun and aesthetic vlog where you get to see me having a bunch of fun in Mexico. So I highly, highly recommend this series. It took me by surprise. I am someone who is very picky about, you know, my urban fantasy, paranormal, magic-y books nowadays, just because I've read so many of them that for something to really stand out, it has to be amazing. And this was abso-fucking-lutely amazing, especially as someone who loves white shoes romances. This is like one of my favorite of all time white shoes romances, hands down. It is so worth it. The payout with all of the guys was so good. There were so many amazing plot twists in this. I love the magic system. You have got elemental magic, you have got shifters, you've got death dealers and death magic, you've got telekinesis, technokinetics, you've got like all these really cool people with all these really cool magical powers. And that is what is one of the things that I absolutely adored about this, was that it felt so fun and fresh as like a magic system as well. And so yeah, I highly recommend the shit out of this, and it's new adult, so A+. The book series doesn't get spicy until I think book 2 though, so just know that. Next up, we have a book that I didn't actually realize was new adult until I sat down to film this and then realized it was, and that is another one of my all-time favorite series of all time. You know, if I had to make any book series like my personality, it would definitely be, you know, like the Bonds That Tie series that I just mentioned. But at the end of the day, it really would be the Madison Kate Quartet by Tate James. I've talked about this series a shit ton on my channel, but I've never spoken about it in a specific like new adult romance recommendation because I forgot that it was new adult. But this does take place at college. So this series is another Why Choose Romance series. As you can tell, actually 3 of the books on this list were Why Choose Romances. I have a thing for YG's romance. They are like my favorite. They're my bread and butter. If you were ever in a reading slump, pick up any of these YG's romances that I have mentioned today because they will always get you out of it. But the Madison Kate quartet follows Madison Kate Danvers, and so a year prior to when the book starts off, Madison goes to this like fight night where there's this like massive fight between these two like great fighters. And while she is there is a massacre that breaks out between these two rival gangs and a whole gang war starts. And Madison Kate ends up being framed as like the full person as to why this all happened. And so her dad ends up sending her away for a year to kind of complete her senior year of high school, like in some other country. And then she ends up coming back to Shadow Grove to finally attend Shadow Grove University. And she has come back to her dad's mansion only to find out that her dad is newly engaged and that this woman's son is living in the house with his two best friends. And not only is she pissed that now there's these three random guys living in her mansion, but these are the same three guys that she saw a year ago on fight night that she thinks are the reason why she was framed for this murder. And so it is definitely an enemies to lovers romance between her and these three guys. It is Madison Kate trying to actually find out what did happen a year ago, why she was framed, and her relationship with these three guys. Shadow Grove is where all of Tate James's books take place, and this is the very first series that does take place in the Shadow Grove universe. So I definitely recommend it. But it takes place in university. It is so much fun. I absolutely love MK. She is such a total badass and a half. Like, she's one of my favorite female characters I have ever read. She takes no shit from anyone. She is like all about like embracing her sexuality and being so sensual. She's just super cool and I adore the living crap out of her. If you have not read this series, you absolutely need to. It is so addictive. It is so bingeable. I read all 4 books in this series in 3 days. It is that freaking good. Like, it is absolutely delicious. I love the absolute living crap out of it. There's also a sauna sex scene in this book as well, which was really good. And overall, this is just a standout series. And last but not least, we have a book that I recently read, and that is Misfit by Elle Kennedy. This is a new adult romance series. This is the first book in her prep series overall, and the entire series follows different couples, but it has one mystery that is spanning throughout the entire series. So this takes place in high school at Sandover Prep, which is an all-boys delinquent prep school. So guys who will come from really rich families but, you know, are delinquents all get sent to this boarding school basically to kind of clean up their act, but not really. And you follow RJ, who was just transferred to Sandover Prep because A, he was kicked out of his last high school, and B, his mum just married this super rich guy who already has a son going to Sandover Prep, so he was able to get RJ to go to it. So RJ is at the school. He doesn't really care to be there. RJ is actually a hacker in his spare time until one day he meets this girl on campus, and that is Sloane. And now Sloane is attending one of the all-girls schools in the area, but her dad is actually the headmaster of Sandover Prep. And so it is a secret dating, forbidden romance in the two of them because you're not supposed to date the headmaster's daughter. I absolutely love their romance together. Sloane is a very strong and independent heroine who is kind of like sworn off boys at the moment, but she finds herself very much attracted to RJ. RJ is just such a smooth talker. I also just love hacker heroes. You tell me that the main guy is a hacker and I'm done. I'm here for him. Swoon City 100%. Plus he ends up joining the swim team as well. So there is like a swim team sport romance aspect of this too, which was really unique and I wasn't expecting, and it was just really fun. All of her guy characters are so great. Lawson is a character in this, and Lawson is absolutely hilarious. He is kind of like top shit at prep, but he decides to seduce his 2 teachers. So there's these 2 teachers who are a married couple, and he decides to seduce each of them individually, and it is absolutely priceless. He is like the bisexual baddie of the year. I love him to death. So highly recommend the shit out of this. It was so much fun. Please let me know down below what some of your favorite new adult romances are, and if you did enjoy this video, please like button. If you want to see more of me, please go to my channel and check me out over on TikTok and Instagram. And until next time, thanks so much everyone. Bye bye.